In today's video, we're going to teach you 6 easy steps on how to manage a fire in a backyard offset like a pro. Which reminds me, I built a little simulator and it's not clean. I gotta go clean it.
JD. JD. Where'd he go?
I'm in here cleaning out the firebox.
What? What in the world? How'd you get so small?
Oh man, I'll tell you later. I'm in here trying to get ready for this fire management video.
Nobody's gonna believe this, but I'm gonna make them.
Oh, you want a photo? How's this?
Well, come out whenever you're ready.
Oh, no, Jordan, don't do that. I can't reach the latch.
Thank goodness. Dude, what in the world's going on?
It is hot in there.
How did you get so small?
Beef tallow, come on. Let's show these folks what we're doing. This is a nice training aid simulator. It allows us to make a fire simulation in here as far as where the wood's gonna go and kind of get your fire style dialed in here.
Yeah.
Folks can see that at home.
Yep.
And then we can do real world action over here on this firebox. So it allows us to demonstrate what we're doing in here without getting burnt and burning up cameras. For a good reference, we've opted today to use a faux bed, which is made by Jordan here. He's actually gone out and given us some fake coals. And that's gonna really allow us to give you a good bird's eye view of what we're doing inside the firebox. And additionally, we're not gonna get 2nd and 3rd degree burns.
Absolutely.
So we've broken this whole tutorial down into really 6 sections. They're not really steps, or some of them are processes, but really it's just some ideas, to have as you're cooking to understand these 6 things. The first one, foundation. You've gotta start out with an established coal bed before you cook.
So once you've established your coal bed, you're gonna use that as your energy for cooking your protein. Every time you add a split on, you're gonna burn gases and you're gonna make smoke, and that's gonna be what flavors the protein.
So the second category is our temperature goals. That's gonna be the temperature goal that we're trying to achieve when we're starting our cook or anywhere throughout the cook. We wanna know what our target temperature is so we can achieve that with proper fire management.
So if you wanna learn how to maintain a temperature for a longer period of time, I suggest you learn about the density and the size of your splits. This piece right here is a little heavier than it looks, and this piece is a little lighter than it looks. This one's gonna catch and burn a little faster, and this one's gonna burn a little slower. This one's used for the earlier parts of the cook, and this one's used a little later in the cook.
So that allows us to have our temperature goals, and that allows you to obtain and maintain the temperature as we're cooking. So now we move on to step 3, and step 3 is the orientation of the split on the coal bed. We call that fire style. For reference, in there is the cooking chamber, so you guys are the brisket. And then right here, of course, is the firebox where we're feeding our splits. So let's assume we're gonna start out with just a brisket cook. We're gonna start about 200 to 225. What's the orientation that we wanna start out with?
So we have the brisket on, we're putting it on our first splits. I am going to put the first 2 base logs at a slight angle, and that's gonna allow the air to come in slower to go between these logs.
No matter if you're pulling in from the bow tie or the door.
We're cooking at such a low temperature, it's not gonna have hot spots in the pit. It's all gonna cook very evenly, but this actually allows the wood to burn a little bit slower. So this is a speed bump. It slows down the airflow. With the way that the air wants to come in straight, if you do this, it's gonna come in and slow it down. And opposed to the way we just had the wood oriented, if we ran them completely parallel with the chamber like this, the airflow is gonna be so much faster, and we don't want that. If your flame is doing this at a 45-degree angle, it's not a good sign.
So in theory, this fire style right here, or this orientation, should give us what we're looking for in the temperature of 200 to 225 for a long period of time. So when this burns down, you'll take your shovel, you'll break it down into coals. That's your timing. That's kind of when you're doing a fire read. Your fire read is really asking yourself, am I able to take my shovel and smash my splits down into coals?
And if you have the proper air intake, these should burn down at roughly the same rate, and they will all bust at about the same time.
That's really important. Before I go any further, this is a 3-split style.
Yep.
And if we want to bump up the temperature, we're still using these 3-split styles. You know what the density of our splits are, the length of them. So let's say we want to bump to 250. What are we going to do now?
Since we're going to 250 and with running this fire, you're going to continue to start building more coals, and you don't necessarily need more wood. you can slowly start to move the orientation of this wood a little bit, and
as the airflow comes through there.
Makes
now,
it a little
you did
faster.
something here that we want to show the good folks. If you have your splits tighter together, that's going to cause them to burn hotter.
Yep.
And if you separate them, that's going to cause it to burn cooler.
It is. And if you get too hot at some point in your cook, spread the wood apart in that firebox.
And that'll save you some. Talk to us about, a lot of folks want to have a ravine or an airway gap going through the firebox or through the coals. Talk to us about that in this particular fire style.
So the need for a ravine is when you're running your logs completely perpendicular to the orientation of the chamber.
You need air to go up underneath.
Yeah, you need air to go underneath them, and you need a little bit of a valley for the air to go through. But if you're running them the way we showed you, like this, you have a ravine. This acts as the ravine.
Right.
Then you just put that right there.
And the split distance between the coals and this split, it doesn't affect the fire.
I personally will never dig my wood down into the coals. I do not like it. It smolders real bad. Then you got to come back in more frequently and move them around and flip them and stuff. I don't like to do all that shovel work.
Okay, so Jordan, our brisket cook or whatever we've got going on is now wrapped, and we want to really bump the temperatures up, say 275, maybe even 300.
Okay.
What's going to be our process and our methodology for that?
So now we're going to go for a faster fire, and we want the airflow to be faster, and we want the wood to catch faster, and we want it to just burn
We've
fast.
got our protein protected.
Yep. So now we're going to add in split number 4, and we are going to run them about that close together.
About an inch or two together, a little less than 2 inches.
Yep.
And that's going to give us the energy to give us 275. We don't care about the smoke coming off the wood anymore. So now we're just finishing our product.
We are, and we're just going for doneness. And this is, you don't want crazy flames going up into your chamber. This is a controlled hot fire.
So that concludes the orientation and fire style portion, but what is equally important is the air intake that we need to be able to run the fire.
We just put on a new round of splits. We need to let them catch, and once they do, shut the door. We're either gonna cook with the bow tie or we're gonna cook with the door being cracked. These next 3 to 4 minutes are very crucial. You will either get to your target temp, below it, or above it. If we're trying to get to our target temp and it will not climb, you probably need more airflow. If you're way hotter than your target temp, you probably need to shut down the air intake some. You do it in little bitty increments, because moving it that much can be 10 or 15 degrees.
So now that you've got your air intake much improved, hopefully you're going to have a successful cook understanding the principle of orientation and air intake. We're going to move on to our 5th segment, which is really just the timing of splits. That can be a little confusing for people, and the timing of splits can be crucial. So talk us through what we want to do as far as the timing of adding a split and the timing of making coals.
The more wood you burn, the more you get into a rhythm. It's rhythmic. Putting wood on a fire is, you will get your pit dialed in to the right temperature where you want. It can only hold that for a certain amount of time. You're gonna start losing the boost that you had from your piece of wood, and then your temperature will start coming down. There's 2 things that are gonna happen. You either need to change the airflow of your wood on the fire, or you're gonna need to change the airflow going into the fire. So you will look, and if you see your wood kind of turn into coals, you'll know when you can hit it with a shovel and it makes that noise.
You can even practice.
You can.
You can take a shovel and just boom, pump it.
mean,
And
just touch it.
if it doesn't break down, it still needs a little bit more time to burn.
It does. And maybe give it 3 or 4 more minutes and let it burn. I like to put all my splits on new every time if I can. I don't want to, I only need 2 out of the 3 splits need to be replaced. So that means I got to come back in about 5 or 6, 10 minutes and then do it again. I'd rather shut it and lose 3 or 4 degrees for a little bit so I could put them all on there fresh.
So the timing of splits is just going to take a little bit of repetition, a little muscle memory, understanding that this is kind of an art, and as you start to really fall into it, you're not going to be able to go and mow the grass and wash the car. You're going to have to stay on this firebox. And it's part of the pleasure of cooking. A lot of people go, well, do I have to babysit the firebox?
Yes.
You do. And the reason you do is because we're chasing great barbecue, and that's how it comes. And that's because we're going to commit to it. And you'll fall in love with it, and you will really start to see the enjoyment of that. But moving on, we're now getting into our 6th step, which is really not a step, and that is navigating the trouble. Yeah. The trouble of when a split doesn't ignite, or the trouble of a split's been in there for 5 or 10, 15 minutes, and it's black, it's smoldering. How do we get around our first little identification of trouble?
Well, if you have a split that's black, it's more than likely one of your base logs. My recommendation is put a new split down. It's probably either too dense or it's been too smothered.
You can move that one to the back of the firebox?
You can, or you can give a little bit of life to your coals by stirring them around and getting some more oxygen.
Lightly.
Put a new, lesser dense split right there. Let it get to catching and put the one that turned black or is smoldering right there on top and let it catch.
All right, so it brings me to the next question. What happens when your entire fire smolders? That's typically going to be air intake.
It could be air intake, a poor bed of coals, too dense of wood, or bad air intake.
And you have this great saying, start with one problem and work your way.
Yeah. So we will address one problem at a time. So if they're all not burning, I'm assuming probably the coal bed. But if I look in there and they're glowing like they are in our model, I know it's not the coals. I know next step, it's either the wood or it's the air intake.
You might have some wet wood,
Yep.
or you don't have the wood. It may be a little too tight into the coals.
So before moving that wood, I'm gonna go with air first because that's the easiest to do without having to mess with that. I would open up the bow tie a little bit or adjust the door open. See if the airflow seems to like fix your problem, and if not, go to the wood. And that means it's probably too dense or the airflow's bad in it.
So now a third thing that I think is seen a lot in this is when the fire looks like it's healthy, the coals look healthy, but you've got a lot of white smoke coming out of the stack. You're always coaching. When I hear you coach, just be patient when you first put the splits in, let them ignite. Might take 30 seconds to a minute. But let's say we're 15 minutes in and all of a sudden I'm seeing a lot of smoke. We have a smolder. We're gonna go about basically the same process?
Yes, well, first I'm gonna look at my coal bed. Is it dead? Does it need oxygen? There's many different things you can do. You might need to reorient the wood, the same 3 sticks or 4 sticks, move them around and change it. Maybe try to get more airflow underneath the logs. If that's not working, you probably have pretty dense wood if you have a healthy coal bed.
One of the great pieces of advice you told me about running the fire style with 3 splits, or how many ever splits you're running to achieve your temperature, is that you're building the same fire on repeat, and you're also building the maximum amount of coal bed.
Yep.
And you've got recycling of embers happening.
You do, and I'm gonna build that same fire every time for the first few hours. Then I'm gonna have a good idea of what split I should use, how I should orient it, and how much airflow. So every single time I'm putting new wood on, it's almost the exact same repeat every time, and that's way less work that I have to do. You can't just run fires with one split. You will never replenish your coals in a fast enough rate to keep them in there. And once you get that dialed in, you can get your target temp and hold it for 20 or 30 minutes on these pits.
That's great advice. So Jordan, I want to thank you very much for bestowing upon us the great information over the last 17 years you've acquired for managing a fire. Of course, this is a backyard offset, but you've allowed us to understand these 6 segments. Foundation, of course, you got to have a coal bed, and you need to have your temp goals established, and the orientation of how your splits, your fire style, they're very important. Air intake, whether you're using the door or the bow tie baffle, and then the split timing as far as understanding when we're going to put a split in or 3 splits in. And then the last segment is navigating those fire troubles. I think this is all going to be really helpful information that you're going to be able to use at home, and I hope this has been helpful, and I'll see you on the next video.
You gotta be freaking kidding me, it worked. Blue? No.